Let's get back to that breaking news out of Broadview, Illinois, just outside Chicago, where we continue to watch images of protesters. They're outside an ICE detention facility. They're now clashing with law enforcement, so it's growing increasingly more and more tense. And you can see here in just a moment a particularly tense interaction between authorities and someone who appears to be a member of the clergy. Let's listen in for a second. So again, this happening just moments ago. This is in Broadview, Illinois, outside one of these ICE detention facilities. And you can see those law enforcement officials pushing up against protesters there. Unclear exactly what's happening, but clearly chaotic. We've seen multiple people now arrested or at least detained by officials, local and state officials who were there. And again, it appears that some of these people are members of the clergy. This was intended to be sort of a protest organized by faith organizations. Let's go back to our reporter, Nnamdi Egwuonwu, just outside where this is happening. Nnamdi, fill us in. What happened in this instance, if you know, and what's happening right now?
So, from what it appears, like you mentioned, earlier today, this all began as a gathering of faith-based leaders. We saw them actually praying at a building nearby here at around 7 a.m. local time. Now, at 9, the plan was for those leaders to move to the area you see here. You see these barriers on both sides. People are allowed to gather. So the initial plan, as we were told by some of those faith-based leaders, was to meet and organize and gather and do exactly what you can kind of hear them doing now, which is singing songs and advocate for the release of detainees in the Broadview facility and really condemn the administration broadly. What later happened is it seems like the group just grew, and you started seeing more and more people come here and coalesce. Some already came prepared with respirators on. At least one of the people who did have a respirator told me that was because they'd been here before and they knew how things could possibly get. And that led to some of the clashes you were seeing, where a group that did include some of those faith leaders tried to breach this opening right here and come into this restricted space where you see law enforcement now, and were immediately pushed back by police. And that led to several clashes that got very physical, that looked very aggressive, where they were, if they crossed this line, they were pulled down and they were detained. That we saw temporary handcuffs placed on them and they were removed. It's unclear exactly if all of those people are going to be arrested and charged, but we do know they were temporarily detained and removed from where we are right now. What we're seeing now is much more reminiscent of what this looked like about an hour ago, albeit a much larger crowd. But things were relatively quiet and stable. There were people singing, locked arms, just like you're seeing, and there were signs. That is what this was for a large portion of this event, outside of the 30 minutes to an hour that you saw of that clash. We're going to be here. Law enforcement has told us they're going to still be here. We saw a tick up in the number of police officers that were here. You can expect to see that remain as long as these protesters are here. Of course, all this comes amid the backdrop of that ruling we've been talking about, where we could see 13 people that were detained in Chicago as part of this immigration operation released today and then several more hundred released next Friday. That is something that has amped up this crowd, according to several of them, at least what they've told me, Anna.
So, Nnamdi, it is good to see things have calmed down there. I mean, how did they get it to calm down, I wonder? And do you have any sense on how many people were arrested in these clashes? And thirdly, I guess, were these state and local police clashing with these residents, these protesters who showed up there, or were there also federal immigration officials involved in any of this?
Sure. So I can tell you, all we've seen so far are really state police and local police. We haven't seen federal personnel, at least based off of their uniforms and their labeling. We haven't seen federal personnel here. As far as how they restored the calm you see now, it was very much so by force, which you saw. It was, they took out agitators, got them on the ground and arrested them, and that sent a message to other protesters. You know, we don't know if things may heat up once again, but we do know that they've at least created a very hard line of, if you cross these barriers, you will be brought down and you'll be removed. They've even pushed back press to a degree. You know, they're very adamant about restricting the space here and trying to keep things in control. And as far as who exactly we're seeing these clashes with, yeah, it did include several faith-based leaders. Actually, if you still look at this breach, a couple of those the people you see there at the front of the line, there's a man with the Resist hat on, was part of that faith-based group. There is another man, a couple right by him, also who was associated with that faith-based group. So they're on the front lines here, and they've been involved in these clashes, though the protest at this point has grown far beyond that group of faith-based leaders.
Okay, Nnamdi Egwuonwu, thank you very much. Stay close. We'll keep an eye on what's happening.